Welcome to a new episode of El Teléfono Rojo on my channel Casero, friends. Today, because our time is quite tight and we are truly in a hurry, we are going to jump straight into the interview without any further delay. It's an honor to have with us today on our channel a specialist in artificial intelligence who also communicates and explains things really well. Aurea, thank you so much for being here. And if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself? That way we can make it quicker, more agile, and clearer.
Very well. So my name is Aurea Rodriguez, and rather than being an AI expert, I'm an innovation expert. I've spent my entire career working in organizations related to technology, innovation, and so on. In one of them, when I was director of innovation at Axio, we launched the Industry 4.0 program for the Generalitat. And at that time, we started to explain these concepts related to artificial intelligence, blockchain, data science. In other words, all these technologies that in some way are part of that concept. Well, since I like to write by day, I am currently the director of the EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology for Cultural and Creative Industries in the Southwest region. All of this, I don't have business cards because they don't fit. The card doesn't fit in this holder. This is what I do during the day. And at night, I write books. I like to write and to explain what I know. And so I have written 3 books. The latest one is called The Leadership of Ants, which explains, well, a bit about what's happening in the world with artificial intelligence. And, well, it also makes a call to action, the action of the ants. For me, the ants are a fable in which the ants represent small and medium-sized businesses, freelancers, people, citizens as such, and even Europe. And this is what the fable explains.
That, well, really, we ants make up 98 or 99%, right?
Exactly. I mean, we are a country, a continent of ants, all of us. Ants have what the book explains is, aside from explaining what's happening with technology and how we need to turn things around, it also explains the values of ants, right? So I've been studying ants, and they have a set of values. In an anthill, everyone knows their role and everyone contributes to the common good so that the anthill can move forward, right? That's kind of the idea, the values of ants: collaboration, teamwork, diversification. Not everyone doing the same thing, 7, 8, 10, 20, 30 big companies in the world and the rest a desert. No, that's not how it works. The world really gets up every day thanks to the ants. And then there's also a call to leadership, right? To these values of leadership, of saying, well, even if we're small, the revolution of the small is important for the system to stay balanced. So it's a story involving several distinct anthills. The eastern anthill, which is made up of red ants. The western anthill, which has a queen named True Ant. And what's happening with the old central anthill, which, well, frequently argues a lot and has trouble making decisions.
Yeah, well, maybe we need a queen ant, right? Someone to guide us a bit, because I think all the anthills also need that a little. We really do need someone to guide them. I met Aurea at the Artificial Intelligence Congress in Pamplona. I've been to several such congresses as well, and I do indeed notice that there's a very real and significant lack of public outreach and comprehensive education in the field of AI.
Absolutely. Well, it's not just you or me or all these people saying it, but the comprehensive reports from the world's leading organizations such as UNESCO and the major well-established institutions have been consistently saying for many, many years now. I remember the first report on the impact of Industry 4.0 on industry and job profiles. It was from 2005. We've been dealing with this for 20 years now. What's going on? This was expected to arrive by 2030, but with COVID and digitalization, everything has sped up, along with investments made in these fields. What was supposed to arrive in 2030 is here in 2025. We're adopting it massively without much education, without knowing what it's all about. Technology is moving ahead of education. We need to turn that around. So all those studies said the same thing, that we need to train everyone on a massive scale. What lies behind artificial intelligence, specifically because it's a highly transformative tool for everything we do, how we do it, and how we communicated both in terms of what's behind AI and the skills that complement AI and give us things like critical thinking, innovation, creativity. And by practicing, that is, in the end, if you have to ride a bike, you have to practice. So, as always, technology has moved ahead of regulation. We've seen it in simpler things like scooters or whatever, and this is a major revolution. Therefore, everyone needs to be trained, everyone, absolutely everyone.
The other day I heard the general manager of Microsoft for Europe say that they had issued an order that all their groups of executives and administrators had to be trained in artificial intelligence at a high level within 12 to 18 months. I mean, I think that's truly remarkable. And whoever wasn't up to speed would be left out.
Well, that's it. Whoever isn't there will be left out. This is a problem. It's going to be so transformative and moving so fast that those who don't adopt and learn to use these technologies to empower themselves, to be more productive, will be left behind. And this is a huge problem. So this could be a tool, right? The capability it has today and its rapid development make it an incredibly transformative tool in fields like healthcare, education. It has great aspects like being able to personalize, to perform calculations never before possible in human history, so that you can... Today, a really interesting article in Biochemistry discussed new discoveries made in record time. Previously, you had to be in a lab, pipetting and doing many things. Now, with these tools, you can do it in record time, which obviously helps advance human knowledge. Let's never leave out human knowledge. This can be transformative, or it can leave many people behind. And that's just what we need to look out for.
Yes, there are colleagues who also talk about the concept of the digital illiterate in the...
Absolutely.
Because it's that...
Exactly. Education transforms in any field, and in this one, even more so. Now, of course, you and I are from the last century, right? And in the last century, there was a time that was the era of office automation, right? We went through the office automation era, born without computers, internet, and all that. At some point in your education, you had to switch to computer mode, right? Learn office software, the wonderful world of Windows and these things. Well, now we're in the world of AI, so what we did back then, we have to do now, which is everyone started getting into those tools, adapting and using them to stay competitive. Still, none of us would think now about going back to pen and paper. It wouldn't cross our minds. This is that kind of moment. So we have to understand it this way and make a step-by-step evolution. Let's not go crazy or get technological stress, because there are people who say, if I'm not up to date with the latest AI tool, and even before that you start to feel I'm not up to date, but no, that's not necessary. What you need is to understand what they're useful for and adapt them to your company, to your daily routine in the best way. Because whoever knows how to use them, like with everything in life, will have a competitive advantage. And above all, since these tools are evolving so rapidly, the results they give us or what they provide are becoming increasingly intelligent. So how will humans be able to coexist with something that in some areas is more intelligent or can do things we can't do, and that at some point we might not even be able to understand? This is the challenge.
Yes. With some guests we've had, we've also often talked about how humans, we tend to be egotistical, right? That I discussed this with Javier Elcarte, who is a psychologist, and he says that, well, depending on the profession, for example, in my case, since I work in law, well, when talking about it with people from the judiciary, the first thing they say is the robot judge is the robot judge. No, because the robot judge... Haven't you seen the movie where it turns into? Well, so it's true that we have to say, come on, I don't know if a robot judge is a good idea or not, but let's be aware that if a machine is capable of having all current case law, all legislation up to date, then maybe has more capabilities than we do for certain things.
Can read instantly, you can't...
Of course, yes.
Stay up to date and things like that. What happens? that we can't just leave it all to. Of course, this is a kind of intelligence, if you want to call it that, based on data, right? And on algorithms that process that data and give you a result. So what happens when humans make decisions, whether it's a judge, a doctor, or anyone else, several factors are taken into account. Part of jurisprudence involves the personal circumstances of that person, the interpretation of the law, which, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I always hear this, the interpretation of the law. A series of factors that go beyond what jurisprudence says or what the law states, right? Because in the end, the law is still just a set of words that define an order, right? And they tell you, well, this can be done or not. But there are many, what lawyers tell me is that when we draft laws, there are more gray areas precisely to allow for some flexibility, because in life, not everything is black or white. I mean, the mitigating effects, these conditions that a judge can actually consider, but an artificial intelligence as such will be strict with the data it has and nothing more, because it doesn't have contextual information. And this is super important in medicine, in the legal world, in education, in any other field. I mean, we are not, as the Pope said, we are not just the sum of our data, we are more than that. I am a person, a mother who can make decisions in a very data-driven way, but my true self, if my child is in danger, I am not rational. My reptilian brain will take over in a big way. So we are human, not just zeros and ones, a combination of, in fact, the human brain is the great unknown in this whole adventure. When we talk about artificial intelligence, calling it intelligence is a bit misleading. It's a bit misleading, but as humans, we have different intelligences. So our decisions are made using a set of intelligences. And one is social intelligence, right? The one that gives us contact with other humans, right? Saying, okay, you and I have to do something together, but the way I see you today or find you, it's better if we do it in the afternoon after you've rested, or maybe we should do it now, right? That's emotional intelligence. A machine doesn't have this, no matter how much we train it. It might give you the impression it has it because they're becoming more empathetic and we're training them to be empathetic, but it neither feels nor suffers. I mean, it couldn't care less whether you're doing well, badly, or anything in between. Even if it says to you, hey, are you okay? Do you want to do something? Or even if we've trained it to be very kind, empathetic, supportive, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. But it doesn't care. It doesn't care.
It turns out that for decisions, it might be a good thing that is lacking.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This is the other side of it. If you make objective decisions based on data and it's very clear what the decision is and what the data are, then it's more efficient than maybe a human who can make human errors, who can have biases, and well, etc. So, well, if in the end, it's a matter of what kind of decisions we want to automate and to what extent, right? And now, well, there's talk about how humans always need to be in the loop when it comes to decisions. I mean, you can use a machine to detect anything in the field of healthcare, but the doctor should have the final say based on contextual data, medical history, their own judgment, how you're feeling, how you look that day, your family history, because maybe you say, no, according to my data, I need to have surgery right now because based on my biochemistry, this and that. Plus, the hospital is ready for me to have surgery, but it turns out your father is very ill, and if you get admitted to the hospital, you won't be able to take care of him. And that's not written anywhere in your medical record. So that's contextual information. What does the doctor decide to do? Can you wait 15 days to care for your father or whatever else? Okay.
Yes. And then another thing which I think I also discussed with Miriam Colado in the interview we did is that what can be replaced are our experiences, right? Because what you have lived through, you carry with you. So how are we going to... It's very complicated for the machine to... One day you have felt them and you have lived them.
Exactly. That's why I say that if we all made rational decisions all day long, well, then AI would be similar to us. But the thing is, we're not rational. We're not rational because of our previous experiences, because of contextual information, because of rationality only within a subset, like a data group, isn't really rational because you have other information. Your experiences, you're an emotional being, you're a mammal. Let's not forget that we're mammals. We are animals, so we function quite differently. We don't function only rationally. We are an animal, if you like, a bit more evolved on the evolutionary chain, but we are still fundamentally animals.
Animals, that's clear. That's clear. Earlier, I mentioned to you a news story that came out yesterday in the media about how the Regulatory Society of Lawyers in England had approved the first, I don't know if it was a law firm or a legal consultancy, 100% guided or, well, yes, guided or overseen solely by artificial intelligence without human supervision. Well, that
This is what I don't agree with. That is not super, it's just that I think we need to start redefining the word supervision. I believe that from now on, work is not hybrid. And we tend to think of hybrid work as telecommuting, right? Well, from now on, work will be mixed. In other words, we have tools, colleagues, Copilot, the name Microsoft has given it is actually quite fitting, isn't it? It's a Copilot that will provide you with assistance in your daily work by solving problems and so on. All right, up to that point, that's fine. But it's like I mentioned earlier about contextual information. I mean, to completely leave decisions, certain decisions, especially sensitive ones like those in a law firm or matters related to health and so on, any decision, to fully delegate all decisions. I think we're leaving information behind, and never has that phrase been more appropriate. So this could make for a really catchy headline, right? And you can see where things are heading. And this is important to know because denying the evidence is, well, denying reality. And the fact they're already telling you there are law firms entirely based on AI agents means they've trained a series of robots, in this case, to provide answers. These robots probably have answers, which is what you were saying, they'll know very well. They'll have read all legislation. They'll know. They will have applied algorithms that will likely give you the highest probability and are probably more efficient in some things than people. And there are examples of this. The other day, they published in the field of healthcare that there are AIs that are much more efficient than some doctors, which is already starting to get a bit scary. But I keep insisting. One thing is that you can analyze a mammogram because much more efficiently than maybe a radiologist, the analysis itself, but the radiologist contextual information is what will give you the result and determine the treatment. Not just the x-ray, not just the evaluation. And in the legal field, it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, no matter how much you analyze all the legislation or whatever, you won't necessarily do it better. I think there always has to be a human in the loop.
the other day in a debate, besides, there can also be ethical, moral issues, matters of context. The problem was also brought up that if we delegate everything, if something fails or there's a breakdown and no one is prepared to step in, like during a blackout, as has happened, and of course, since we've let everything be done for us and now we haven't prepared anyone, so, of course, it's really important to keep training people. I don't know whether to call it a plan B or an emergency plan, but to always have it there, because if not...
I think we're also in a kind of hype right now, in one of those, this is something new and it's really impacted us because it speaks our language, so it grabs our attention. But AI isn't new. It's been around for many years with lots of people who know a lot implementing it in their companies and so on. But what has caught our attention is that now huge amounts of money are being invested, and the development of these models is moving very quickly because money and people are being put into it. But let's not go completely crazy either, because in the very end, at least for now, as far as I currently know, the entire world is still managed, regulated, and led by human beings, right? So let's not lose our heads. And from here on, let's use it for good things and set some limits. And I think we're entering that phase of, okay, let's not go crazy. This doesn't solve all the world's problems either, because that's just not the case. I mean, artificial intelligence is a powerful tool, yes, that it's a technology that can help us solve problems we haven't been able to solve throughout history, yes. But not everything, not everything. So be careful also not to think that it's some kind of miracle solution, right? In the end, it's about the applications. That's why I say I'm a specialist in innovation. I like applying this to create products and services that improve people's lives and help solve problems. If it can help us make progress on issues like climate change, health, education, pollution, whatever it may be, then it's more than welcome. But if all it's going to do is cheat at solitaire or create an even bigger problem for us, then we just turn it off, unplug it. That's it.
Absolutely. Now, taking advantage of the fact you're here, and since many in our community are small business owners or freelancers listening to us, there are many in this country, of course, and they're saying, okay, so what do I do? What should I do too? Of course, because
the first thing you need to do is get trained. Get trained and say, well, understand what it's for, how it can help me, what use it could be to me, right? And then in your own company, which you know better than anyone, you know your goals, how you plan to grow and so on, figure out how you can use these tools. But just like all the tools that have come before throughout history, so it's really nothing new. I mean, no one would think to say, I remember the internet moment, the moment of you have to have a website on the internet because if you don't exist. And then people would say, if you don't, how many companies do you know don't have a website?
wow.
There are some, but that's because they don't want to, because they're interested in staying offline. But for the rest of the world, if you don't exist. No one would think of it. Well, this is kind of the same momentum. So you have to know what it's for without going crazy, without saying, now we're going to make astronomical investments. That's what happens, right? Companies say, let's gear up by technology. And you say, no, first train the people and then you can buy. Even Microsoft itself is training its executives. Even Microsoft itself, from what you're telling me, right? So let's not go crazy. Let's train people, see what we can use, and then make decisions about whether we need to invest or not. But the first investment, the one that will transform your company, is people educating people, because otherwise you'll end up with all this great equipment that no one is going to use. So with that...
And are there ways for everyone who needs to be trained to actually get trained?
Yes. The other day someone asked me, and well, I said, the thing is, it's all moving so fast that there are, I mean, there's a huge variety, right? And of course, formal education as such, like producing an artificial intelligence engineer, well, that takes about 5 or 6 years. So it's not something quick or anything like that. What happens then? Since there aren't enough professionals, all kinds of training programs are popping up, whether it's through lifelong learning, master's degrees or whatever, but everyone is figuring it out however they can, right? Like, I call it training that's all over the place. But even the companies themselves are making their own tutorials. I don't want to mention any names because I don't think it's necessary, but each of them has its own free tutorials, its own free academies. What for? So you'll use their product, but you can watch and learn, so it's not a problem. There are short tutorials, 3 minutes long, about different things you can learn in no time. It becomes clear what things are for and how to use them.
Yeah, I think in the end, almost everything in life, it's a lot of trial and error, right? And what we can expect is, like, we just came from a talk and there are people who are like, no, I want to be given. You have to put in a bit of work yourself, right? You have to. It's not as easy as...
It's not that easy. I mean, if it were easy, but it's easier than we think. So it's also the other way around, and it's democratized, and that's the good news. With little money, you can do things that used to be unthinkable. I mean, the fact I can teach classes in Mandarin without any idea of Mandarin or whatever, I can do things all over the world. And this is impressive. I mean, I can share my knowledge or teach classes at the University of Shanghai without that, or this opens up a whole new world completely. So this is the one barrier we still had, right? Among us saying, wow, for me, the language barrier, well, now that's over. You put on an earpiece, or one tool they released yesterday lets you make a video and have it translated simultaneously into any language you want. Fantastic. It's fantastic because it means the world, humanity, is one entity, and we put up barriers, but physical borders in this virtual world just don't exist. They don't exist. So, well, we can put up barriers if you want, but
I often compare the whole topic of artificial intelligence to having superpowers, because, for example, we say, I wish I could speak every language. You're going to be able to do that. I wish I could compose music. You'll be able to compose music. I wish I could make a movie. You'll be able to make a movie. I don't know if you feel the same way. We've been given a superpower.
yes, absolutely. I mean, you can do things now that you couldn't do before. I mean, just imagine that you're talking about this from the perspective of an individual for leisure and so on, but if you apply this to the fields I mentioned, just imagine being able to solve unsolvable problems. Of course, those really are actual superpowers, aren't they? To say, wow, it can do something that was unthinkable, incalculable, something the human mind couldn't reach until now. And those really are superpowers to me. And then on a smaller scale, right? To say, wow, access to so many things is being democratized, right? For better or for worse. Does this mean it will replace artists? Because now everyone can make music. No, listen, that's not the case. We've from acoustic music to this electronic music. I tell people in the field of painting, we've gone from the paintbrush to the mouse, right? From the mouse to the prompt. We now paint with our voice, which is quite romantic, isn't it? It's just another way of doing things. Does that mean people don't paint anymore? Does it mean we've stopped painting with No, it just means we have another way to do it. It's another way of doing it.
That's clear. And well, as I was saying, I really like Spider-Man, and as his uncle used to say, right, that with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we have to base ourselves on, right?
And I think that with these kinds of tools, we need to put even more emphasis, if possible, on common sense and the common good.
All right.
Both things.
Well, I'd really like to thank Aurea for stopping by El Teléfono Rojo. We're continuing to create content for you all. Aurea, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And we'll keep doing more things together.
Perfect. I'd be delighted.